The radios were hissing. The desert wind kept rattling the chain-link fence, and something had moved across the sand where nothing living should have been able to walk. The incident file was rediscovered in a steel cabinet marked for disposal, buried under decades of dust in an auxiliary security booth behind Technical Area 03. The booth itself had no power, no working air system, just a single warped desk and a drawer swollen with old paper logs. Most were routine. Badge scans, vehicle checks, coyotes, tripping thermal sensors. But one stapled packet had been flagged abnormal in red ink, its edges stiff with heat exposure, as if it had been left too close to an active conduit before being archived. It belonged to a night guard named Charles Dwyer. Dwyer's notes described a shift that should have been uneventful. A low-traffic night, partial moon cover, temperatures dropping fast across the plateau. But at 02:13, one of the seismic microarrays registered a single vertical impact northwest of the restricted perimeter. Not a tremor, not an animal. A clean, solitary compression spike, like something heavy had stepped down once, then gone still. Dwyer reported to the location expecting a rattlesnake or a collapsed piece of fencing. Instead, he found a clear set of prints leading away from the boundary line. Not tracks, prints. Perfectly spaced depressions, each one deep enough to suggest a weight far beyond a person's, yet shaped unmistakably like a human foot. No drag marks, no stagger, no variation in stride. Just an impossibly steady walk cutting across uneven ground as if the terrain didn't matter. The labs later dismissed the pattern as wind erosion, but the underlying sand had compacted in a way wind couldn't replicate. Dwyer insisted the compression layers were wrong. The sand wasn't displaced outward, it was compressed downward, as though whatever had passed through weighed more than a vehicle but touched the ground with the surface area of a barefoot adult. He followed the trail with his flashlight cutting thin through the dark. The air tasted metallic. He noted a sharp, warm odor, like overheated circuitry drifting across the open field. His radio crackled with partial transmission loops, segments of his own voice delayed by seconds, stuttering back at him as though bouncing off equipment no longer in use. The prints continued in a straight line, no deviation, no hesitation. They passed over a patch of volcanic rock sharp enough to slice boots, yet the indentations remained perfect, as if they'd been pressed into the stone itself. That detail wasn't included in the official summary. Dwyer penciled it in the margins, hand shaking enough to distort the letters. He tried casting his flashlight ahead to see what the trail was leading to, but the beam seemed to dull the farther it reached, swallowed by a faint shimmer in the air. A distortion, not heat. Temperatures were in the low 40s. Something else, a column of slightly wavering space that bent the edges of the light, like glass under pressure. The last print ended exactly 6 inches before that shimmer. The sand beyond it was untouched. Dwyer stepped around the perimeter, careful not to disturb the ground. He circled the anomaly twice. No tracks leading away, no sign of collapse, no scatter from the weight that should have accompanied something making impressions that deep. He wrote that it felt like the trail had been cleanly severed, not concluded. He radioed Central. The signal broke again, this time with an audible delay of almost a full second. His own last word echoed back like a muffled playback. When he turned, the shimmer had grown more faint, but a low vibration passed through the soles of his boots, a quick pulse that stopped as fast as it started. The rest of his log described an unnerving walk back toward the security cart. The air pressure shifted several times, popping in quick, uneven bursts that made his ears ache. His flashlight failed twice. The electrical system of the cart refused to start for nearly 5 minutes before sputtering back to life with all dashboard indicators flashing simultaneously. Dwyer filed the report before sunrise, handwriting growing unstable near the end. 2 pages were removed before the packet was archived. Only the perforated edge remained, leaving a serrated line where whatever he'd written was cut away. No follow-up interview was recorded. No photographs of the prints were retained. But the location he marked on the map still exists. Unremarkable at first glance. Just a stretch of cracked stone and packed earth inside a fenced buffer zone. If you stand there long enough, the air feels subtly wrong, as if the pressure shifts in slow, uneven tides. And sometimes, late at night, sensors in the area still register single, isolated compression spikes with no identifiable source. The wind rattled the storage hangar doors. A fluorescent bulb hummed overhead, and something inside the cardboard box shifted even though no one touched it. The archive technician, Morales, had been tasked with digitizing redundant analog material before disposal. Most boxes held routine surveillance tapes, training videos, calibration footage from the 80s. But this box, unlabeled, sealed with brittle yellow tape, was lighter than it should have been. Inside, wrapped in a sheet of insulating foam, he found a single mini DV cassette marked in fading marker, Dwyer 02.17. The timestamp matched the night the prints appeared. He threaded the tape into the digitizer and watched the preview monitor flicker to life. Static hissed in wide bands, slanting across the screen like torn film. The timecode struggled to lock. For the first several seconds, there was only darkness and the faint sound of wind pressing against a microphone not designed for field recording. Then a flashlight beam jerked into view. It wasn't Dwyer filming. The angle was too low, too unstable, as if the camera were strapped to a chest or clipped to a vest. The footage wobbled with each footstep, the desert floor rippling in pale silver under the moon. Every few frames, horizontal distortion bars warped the image, bending the horizon line. Morales leaned closer. The camera reached the first print. Even degraded through tape noise, the impression in the sand looked impossibly deep. The camera hovered over it for several seconds while the mic picked up faint electrical pops. A second print came into view, and a third, each identical, each perfectly aligned. The path extended into darkness with mathematical precision. A sharp rattling noise came from the audio track, half wind, half something metallic brushing the microphone. The camera advanced. Morales noticed how the beam of the flashlight seemed to lose brightness each time it swung toward the open field. The sand looked darker, the air shimmering with a faint grain that wasn't artifact. It drifted like actual particulate matter. Then the camera froze. Not paused, frozen in place, as if the wearer had gone completely still. At the edge of the frame, barely visible, the distortion pulsed once. A brief contraction of the background, the same shimmer described in Dwyer's log. But here, up close, it bent the sand in a smooth inward curve, like a transparent weight pressing down from above. The camera took a single step closer. The shimmer tightened. The audio spiked with a clipped feedback whistle. Morales flinched as the tape jumped forward several seconds on its own. The shimmer was gone, but the final print was visible, its edges trembling with interference. The sand ambient noise had ceased. Now the microphone picked up only breathing, harsh and unsteady, as if whoever wore the camera had begun to panic silently. The ground beyond the last print remained untouched. The camera panned to the right. For the first time, a faint red glow flickered across the lens, quick and unfocused, like a distant aircraft warning light, but too low to the ground, too static. Morales rewound the tape 5 seconds and played it again. Same flicker, same position. No movement. The wearer stepped backward. A low vibration rumbled through the audio, causing the camera to shake. Dust rose in thin vertical strands, lifting straight upward before collapsing. The horizon blurred. Something electrical crackled high in the frequency range, almost like a spark inside metal tubing. The wearer turned away and began retreating toward the security cart. The camera angle jostled wildly, but the sound behind them persisted. 3 pulses, each deeper than the last, like a slow, irregular heartbeat made of pressure instead of sound. Then the tape abruptly cut to black. Morales frowned. The time code still advanced. 7 seconds of silent darkness. Then a final frame appeared. The interior of the security booth. Empty, the camera placed on the desk facing the door. The angle suggested it had been set down carefully. In the lower right corner, a shadow crossed the floor. It moved without corresponding footsteps. And then the tape ended. Morales rewound it again, but the digitizer refused to play the last frame a second time. The file corrupted itself the moment he tried exporting it, leaving only the earlier segments intact. Everything before the booth. He sealed the cassette back into its foam wrap, heart hammering. The temperature inside the hangar felt several degrees colder, though the HVAC system remained steady on the panel display. He checked the box for more tapes. There were none. But at the bottom of the foam, tucked flat and almost invisible, he found a strip of thermal printer paper, half burned at the edges. It bore a single line of text, faded but still legible under the hangar lights. 02.21. Second impact detected east of Dwyer Trail. Source unresolved. The gravel crunched under Delgado's boots. The portable floodlight hummed behind him, and the air around the survey ridge felt unnaturally still for that time of night. Delgado was the field engineer called in after Morales submitted the corrupted digitization file. He didn't know the full story, only that an irregular seismic event matched the coordinates in an old security incident. His task was simple: run fresh ground-penetrating radar sweeps, verify the soil structure, confirm nothing was buried beneath the trail. He powered the GPR unit and watched its screen bloom with static before stabilizing into a clean depth map. The initial scan passed over ordinary sediment, fractured rock, compacted sand, small voids typical of erosion. Nothing unusual, until the second pass. A vertical spike appeared under the location of the first footprint. Not metal, not stone. A density reading too concentrated to be natural, rising nearly straight up from 12 feet below the surface. The spike vanished when he swept the antenna left, then reappeared when he returned to center. A perfect column beneath a single footprint. Delgado frowned, recalibrated, and tried again. Same result. He backed up along the line of prints. Every impression produced the same anomaly. A dense, narrow column extending far deeper than the pressure of a human step could ever create. It was as if something had punched downward through the earth with exact uniformity. He checked the device. Battery steady, antenna clean, firmware stable. On the fourth sweep, the screen jittered with horizontal tearing. Then a new reading emerged, this time several meters ahead beyond the last footprint. A shallow distortion, like a pocket of compressed air trapped between layers of soil. It pulsed once. Delgado looked up. At first, nothing. The field stretched quietly under the moonlight, fences glinting dull silver. But then he noticed the faint drift of dust spiraling upward near the end of the trail, not blowing sideways, rising. He moved closer, careful steps, the GPR strapped at his side. The air thickened, carrying a faint electrical tang. His flashlight beam quivered at the edges, like light passing through heat shimmer, though the temperature had dropped sharply. At the location where the shimmer once stood, the ground showed no indentation, no disturbed sand, nothing. But the dust column rose in a thin, straight thread, wavering as though something unseen was shaping it. Delgado extended a gloved hand into the rising dust. The particles bent around his palm, not away, around, forming a smooth arc that shouldn't have been possible without airflow. He pulled his hand back fast, heart pounding. A tremor whispered beneath the surface, subtle but real, a single pulse through the dirt. The GPR unit beeped sharply. The screen flashed a warning. Subsurface shift detected. He lowered the antenna. The soil profile was changing in real time. Compression layers sliding downward, as if the earth beneath the final footprint were settling. But the pattern wasn't random. The layers folded into a tight funnel shape that extended into darkness beyond the scanner's depth. Delgado reached for his radio. The signal crackled, repeated his last breath back to him with a half-second delay, then cut to dead silence. A flicker of red appeared at the far edge of his peripheral vision. He whipped his head toward it. Nothing. The night was clean and still. But the afterglow lingered in his vision. Not a light source. More like the residue of one low to the ground, exactly where the tape had shown it. He felt the air pressure shift. A soft harmonic throb vibrated through the field equipment. The GPR screen distorted, its image warping outward from the center like a stretched membrane before the whole device powered off with a sharp pop. Delgado stepped back. The dust column collapsed instantly, falling straight down as if the force holding it vanished. The ground gave a faint sigh, an exhalation of settling sand, and then everything went calm again. He hurried to pack the equipment, but as he knelt, he noticed something new carved into the hard soil directly beside the last footprint. A small fracture, almost like a hairline crack, running perfectly parallel to the trail. It hadn't been there minutes earlier, and as he leaned closer, cold air seeped upward through the crack, carrying the metallic scent of overheated wiring. Delgado stood, breathing hard, scanning the field. Nothing moved, but the silence had changed. It wasn't empty. It felt listening. He backed toward the access road, radio still dead. The crack behind him exhaling faint intermittent pulses of cold air. Back at his truck, he logged the reading manually on a clipboard, hands trembling slightly from the chill. Only one detail he struck out twice before settling on the wording. Subsurface structure appears active. Not natural, not static. Increasing. The elevator cables thrummed. The sublevel lights buzzed in thin, tired pulses. And somewhere past the reinforced door, metal vibrated as if something had brushed against the ductwork. Morales and Delgado were escorted underground by Chief Owens, who hadn't slept in at least a day. Owens didn't tell them why the site director suddenly wanted every legacy anomaly reevaluated, but the urgency was clear. The corridor walls were covered in a pale gray coating, acoustic insulation that shouldn't have been necessary for a maintenance wing. Morales carried the digitized fragments of the tape on a drive. Delgado hauled the damaged GPR unit in case anyone doubted his readings. Neither man spoke. The air felt heavy, as if each step pushed through a slow-moving current. The door to sublevel B5 hissed open. Inside, the space widened into a long corridor interrupted by shuttered lab rooms. Only half the strip lights worked, leaving intermittent pockets of shadow. Owens gestured them forward. His voice sounded even, but the tension in his jaw betrayed him. 20 minutes ago, he said, our seismic network registered another single-point impact. Not surface level. Below us. Delgado stiffened. Depth? Owens hesitated. They're still calculating. The signature matches the ones logged in the Dwyer case. Morales exchanged a glance with Delgado. You said these labs were sealed years ago. They were, Owens replied. But this wing sits directly beneath the anomaly coordinates, and one of the old storage rooms just triggered an internal motion sensor. Morales felt a cold prickle crawl down his arms. Owens unlocked the final door manually, swiping an access card that looked too new for a forgotten wing. The barrier slid aside with a hydraulic sigh. The room beyond had been left untouched for decades. Dust coated the floor in an unbroken sheet. Shelving units sagged under outdated recording equipment. A derelict seismic terminal still blinked faint green despite having no recorded power feed. And at the center of the room stood a steel table where something had been recently placed. A single, unmarked mini-DV cassette. Delgado stepped forward slowly. Morales, that's the same model as the one you found. Morales approached the table. The cassette felt warm, too warm for a room this cold. He turned it over. No label, no timestamp, only a faint indentation on the back, as if someone had pressed a thumb into the plastic while it was still soft. Owens kept his distance. This room's been locked since '93. There's no access path that isn't monitored. Delgado crouched near the doorframe. The dust layer was perfect. No footprints in or out. Not even their own had reached the cassette. The table stood in the middle of an untouched island of powder. Morales set the cassette into the portable viewer. Static flooded the display, churning in uneven waves. Then an image surfaced, grainy, underlit, distorted by compression noise. A room. This room. Same angle, same shelves, same table. But the timestamp in the corner flickered through dates as if the camera couldn't settle on a moment. The cassette recorded from a perspective 4 feet off the ground, pointed directly at the door. Owens leaned in. Is this live? No, Morales said softly. It's playback. The screen shook with a brief judder. Then a figure passed across the frame. Not fully visible. Just a shoulder, part of an arm, moving with unnatural steadiness. No sound accompanied the motion. The figure didn't disturb the dust in the recording. It cast no identifiable shadow, but the distortion around it suggested weight, like the air compressed around its outline. Morales felt his breath tighten. Pause it. He stepped closer to the monitor, analyzing the warped pixels. The shoulder height matched a full-grown adult, but the motion was impossibly smooth. No sway, no gait, as if the figure moved without balancing on legs at all. The recording skipped. Now the figure stood closer to the door, motionless. A faint red flicker appeared near its hip, same glow as the anomaly field. Owens unconsciously backed away. Then a soft vibration rolled through the floor. All 3 men froze. The cassette viewer's screen rippled, as if something external had disturbed the signal. The recorded image distorted, and when it restabilized, the figure's head was turned toward the camera. Not a face, not an absence. Just a blur of light bending in the rough shape of a human outline, the edges trembling like thin metal under pressure. Morales snapped the viewer shut. The vibration in the floor deepened, a slow, resonant thrum that felt like it came from somewhere far below the sublevel. Dust drifted down from the ceiling in faint spirals. Delgado stepped back toward the hallway. "We need to leave. That's a compression signature. Something's shifting under the foundation." Owens didn't move. Why would a tape appear in a sealed room? The floor jolted with a low, heavy thud. The same single-point impact. The lights overhead flickered twice, then steadied. A soft hiss rose from the ventilation ducts, air being pushed through from somewhere it shouldn't be. Morales opened the door, ushering the others out. But as he turned for one last look, something flickered in the far corner of the room. A small rise in the dust layer, as though something had stepped upward from beneath it. He pulled the door closed fast. In the corridor, the temperature dropped sharply, breath turning faintly visible. The lights shuddered again. Then the motion sensors at the far end of the hallway activated one by one, each glowing green in sequence, as if something moved past them in a perfectly straight line. Delgado whispered, "It's following the same pattern." Owens swallowed hard. Toward what? The last sensor lit. A brief soft thump echoed through the ventilation duct above them. Then silence. The ductwork ticked as it cooled. The floor trembled in short, uneven pulses, and the hallway ahead seemed to stretch longer than it had minutes before, as if the shadows were pulling it taut. Owens moved first, hand hovering near the holster he wasn't officially allowed to carry this deep underground. Delgado followed, eyes fixed on the ceiling vents. Morales brought up the rear, clutching the warm cassette like it might burn through his palm. They reached the junction where the last sensor had tripped. The indicator light still glowed green. Delgado crouched, examining the metal grate beneath it. The dust layer had been blown aside in a narrow line. Straight, consistent, like a precise airflow had cut through it. But there was no draft, no vibration, nothing mechanical moving. Morales felt something shift behind them. A faint pressure change pushed down the hallway, rolling past their legs like a drop in atmospheric weight. He turned slowly. The lights behind them dimmed in a subtle wave one by one, each bulb losing a fraction of its clarity. Owens whispered, "We're not staying here." They advanced toward the service stairwell. The door stood slightly ajar, though it had been locked when they entered the wing. Morales tapped it with the back of his knuckles. The metal vibrated with an irregular pulse, as if something below was breathing shallowly through the structure. He pushed it open. The stairwell plunged into darkness. Only the top landing was lit, a sharp line dividing light from pitch black. The lower flights disappeared beneath a matte void that swallowed the spill of the overhead fixture. Delgado tested the railing. Cold, far colder than the surrounding air. A faint clink echoed from below like a dropped bolt tapping concrete. Then another. Then nothing. Morales tried his radio. Static churned, shifted, then produced a thin, delayed repeat of his own breathing. A perfect copy half a second late. Identical timbre and cadence. He shut it off instantly. Owen slipped a small penlight from his jacket and aimed it downward. The beam hit the first flight, then bent sideways. Actually bent, veering toward the wall as though something distorted the air between the stairs. Morales exhaled slowly. That's the same deflection pattern from the tape. Delgado stepped back from the stairwell. Whatever's below us, it's compressing space. Not figuratively, literally. Another pulse traveled up the railing. A long, steady one this time. The metal hummed, lightly at first, then with a deeper resonance, like a tuning fork settling into a fundamental tone. Owens nodded toward the opposite corridor. "We use the emergency lift. 2 floors up, 1 floor out. It bypasses the lower sublevels." They retraced their steps. The hallway seemed narrower now, ceiling lower. The insulation on the walls quivered in tiny ripples, reacting to pressure shifts they couldn't see. When they reached the lift alcove, the panel lights were dead. Owens swore under his breath and pried open the maintenance hatch beside it. The service switch sat inside, still locked in the on position. No faults, no tripped breakers, just a dead circuit. Delgado's attention drifted to the floor. Fine dust grains arranged themselves into small ridges, aligning toward the far corner of the alcove. Not blown, pulled. Morales shined his flashlight into the corner. The vent grate there had warped inward, metal bent like soft clay, drawn toward whatever was behind it. The distortion wasn't large, maybe 2 inches of curvature, but it was unmistakable and fresh. Owens grabbed Morales by the shoulder. "We go back. Upper corridor. Now." They moved fast, boots echoing against the concrete. The hallway lights flickered again, this time in erratic bursts. The pressure in the air tightened around them as though the building were inhaling slowly. Then a new sound emerged. A low scrape, not from a door, not from a vent, from beneath the floor. The scrape stopped. A single pulse followed, deep, dense, like a fist striking the ground far below. Dust drifted upward in a narrow line directly beside Morales' foot. He froze. The dust hung in the air for a moment, then twisted downward again, disappearing into a thin fracture in the concrete. The same kind of fracture Delgado had found on the surface. Delgado knelt immediately, scanning it with his small handheld density meter. The device flickered weakly, readings unstable. Then a clear blip appeared. Subsurface void present. Movement detected. A soft tremor nudged the floor. Just enough to feel. Just enough to imagine something shifting quietly beneath their weight. Owens whispered, "It's rising." A metal slam echoed through the wing, another sensor activating, then another. The same straight-line sequence from before, but this time moving toward them from the far end of the building. Morales swallowed hard. "It's not following pathways, it's following direction." Delgado stood. "And we're in its line." Owens scanned the corridor. "Storage chamber ahead. Thickest walls we'll find down here. Move." They ran. At the chamber door, Owens forced the locking wheel with both hands. The hinges groaned. The pressure in the hallway tightened further, the air vibrating at a frequency that made Morales' teeth ache. The wheel spun free. They slipped inside. Owens pulled the door shut behind them, sealing the room in near-total dark until Morales flicked on his flashlight. Inside, everything was still. Old shelves, concrete floor, no vents. Safe. For a full 3 seconds. Then the walls began to creak. Subtle, rhythmic, like something outside was measuring the chamber's dimensions by sound alone. The shelves vibrated. The overhead pipes ticked in uneven spasms, and the floor beneath them flexed with a slow, measured pressure, as though the concrete were softening from below. Morales kept his flashlight trained on the door. Its beam twitched with every subtle shift in air density. Delgado pressed his ear to the wall, listening to the faint, descending hum that seemed to circle the chamber in slow, deliberate arcs. Owens crouched near the floor, feeling for the next tremor. It didn't take long. A single impact struck somewhere beneath the chamber, deep but rising. The dust on the shelves trembled. A small wrench rolled off a crate and clattered across the floor. Its sound warped slightly, like the acoustics inside the room were bending. Delgado muttered, "It's scanning." Same compression signature from the prints. Same spacing. Owens steadied himself. "If it's mapping us, it's deciding where to come up." Morales tightened his grip on the cassette. It was warmer now, almost pulsing. He set it on the floor. The warmth faded instantly, as if contact with the concrete drained whatever residual charge it carried. A faint vibration drifted through the soles of their boots. Then another. Then silence. Delgado whispered, "It's directly under us." Morales took a step back. "We need to move. There has to be another exit." Owens shook his head. "Only the door. Concrete's 3 feet thick on every side. This room was built to isolate power converters." Morales swept his flashlight across the shelves. Old tools, spare circuit boards, coiled cables, a rusted seismic probe sealed inside a cracked plastic case. The probe's indicator light flickered. It had no power source. Delgado noticed the faint red glow bleeding through the crack in the case, the same wavelength they'd seen near the prints, near the shimmer, near the figure in the playback. Owens leaned closer. Back away. Slowly. The glow pulsed once. The floor answered with a low, dense thud, closer than before. A tight vibration rippled outward, lifting dust in a shallow halo across the concrete. Delgado crouched. It's forming another vertical spike. The chamber lights flickered, though the fixtures had been dead since they arrived. A deep resonance hummed inside the walls, metal straining, bolts tightening, as though the structure itself were bracing against something rising through it. Morales stepped toward the door wheel. "Open it. If we stay in here, we're boxed in." Owens spun the wheel halfway before it caught on something. The door groaned, metal flexing inward, pulled by a force on the other side. Not tearing, not bending, compressing. Delgado backed away fast. It's aligning with the door. It knows that's the weak point. Morales raised his flashlight toward the center of the room as the dust began to move again, swirling in a slow, deliberate spiral. Not blown, guided, drawn toward a point 3 feet from the floor, where the air shimmered in a small, wavering column. The same distortion from the desert. Smaller, more focused. Owen stepped between it and the others. "Stay behind me." A dull pulse throbbed through the chamber, expanding outward in a slow wave that made the flashlight beam bend sharply to the left, as if gravity had tilted in that one direction. The spiral tightened. Morales whispered, "It's not entering, it's sampling." Delgado's voice trembled. "Or locating." The shimmer snapped inward, collapsing into a pin-sized point before vanishing. Dust fell straight down. Silence pressured the room. Owens gripped the door wheel again, forcing it through the resistance. The metal groaned, then gave. The seal broke with a heavy pop, warm air rushing in from the corridor. "Go," Owens said. "Now." They slipped out one by one. The hallway was different. Not physically, layout unchanged, but the atmosphere felt stretched, as though the distance between light fixtures had lengthened subtly. The insulation on the walls fluttered in thin, inconsistent waves. Delgado checked his meter. The readings spiked. Behind them, deep within the chamber they'd just escaped, the impact came, louder than any before. A full-bodied strike against concrete, enough to shake dust from the ceiling in heavy sheets. Owens pulled the door shut. A second impact answered. Concrete fractured along the bottom hinge. A long, quiet exhale of cold air leaked through the widening crack, carrying that same faint metallic scent they had traced since the desert. Morales didn't wait. They ran. The corridor lights flickered in a straight, perfect sequence ahead of them, activating one after another, guiding a path toward the exit. Not random, not malfunction, directional, as though something ahead was clearing the way, or moving in parallel. When they reached the main service hall, the air opened up, pressure easing. The emergency lift lights were back on. Owens hit the call button. The mechanisms groaned to life. The doors parted. Inside, the lift's floor was coated in a thin layer of dust. A single line of prints crossed it, deep, precisely spaced, leading toward the back wall, where they vanished as cleanly as Dwyer's trail had in the desert. Morales whispered, "It was just here." Delgado swallowed. "Or it never left." Owens stepped into the lift, jaw set, eyes on the far wall. "We go up. Whatever this is, it's moving independently of the structure. It's not confined." As the doors closed, the lights inside flickered once. The pressure dropped by a fraction, just enough to make their ears pop, before stabilizing again. The lift rose. No alarms, no tremors, no distortion. When the doors opened at ground level, cold desert air flooded in, carrying a faint current of dust illuminated by the night floodlights. Delgado pointed across the field. Near the fence line, a thin column of dust drifted upward in a straight line, bending slightly, then holding steady as if something invisible stood there. Morales tightened his coat against the cold. Owens stepped forward, staring at the rising dust. "We're sealing the sublevels," he said quietly, "but it won't matter." The dust column folded inward, collapsing into the ground without leaving a trace. Nothing moved. Nothing made a sound. But every sensor pole along the perimeter blinked red in perfect sequence, from east to west, one clean line, like something walking straight across the boundary without touching the earth at all.